The forest was quiet, too quiet. Tall trees stood like ancient guards, their branches blocking most of the moonlight. A thin mist curled around the roots, making the ground look like it was breathing. In the distance, an owl cried, and then nothing. A young elf scout crouched low, his sharp ears twitching. "Humans are weak," he whispered to the elf beside him. "If one is in this forest at night, he will not live until morning." The elf leader raised his hand for silence. His eyes, bright like green glass, studied the darkness ahead. "Wait," he said softly. "Something is coming." From far away came the sound of heavy, slow footsteps. Crunch, 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 leaves and twigs snapped under each step. Then came another sound, ragged breathing, deep and uneven, as if each breath hurt. The mist shifted. A shape appeared. It was tall, broad-shouldered, but hunched over. As it stepped into a patch of moonlight, the elves saw the truth. It was a human soldier. His armor was broken, one shoulder plate hanging loose, blood staining the metal. His face was pale, lips cracked, but his eyes burned with stubborn fire. Youngest elf smirked. "Look at him, he is almost dead. How is he still walking?" The leader did not answer. He kept watching, curious. The human staggered forward, dragging something heavy behind him. It was a large black sack, tied with rope. The fabric was wet and dark, maybe from mud, maybe from blood. "What is he carrying?" One elf whispered. No one knew. The human stopped for a moment, resting his hand against a tree. His breath came in short bursts. He looked around, scanning the shadows, and for a moment, it seemed he looked directly at where the elves were hiding. The younger elf chuckled under his breath. "He cannot see us. Humans see poorly at night." But the leader frowned. "He does not need to see us," he murmured. "He knows something is here." The soldier straightened, adjusted the weight of the sack on his shoulder, and began walking again. The elves followed in silence, stepping from shadow to shadow. After some minutes, the human reached a river. Its current was strong, white water crashing over rocks. The elves expected him to stop, maybe search for a bridge. Instead, he stepped straight into the water. Cold spray hit his face, but he kept moving. The current pushed hard against him. His legs trembled. The sack dragged him down, pulling him sideways. "He will drown." One elf muttered. But the human gritted his teeth and pushed forward. One step, 2 steps, 3. The water rose to his chest. Still, he held the sack above the surface with both hands, keeping it dry. The youngest elf's smile faded. "This is strange." The soldier finally reached the other side, collapsing to his knees in the mud. He gasped for breath, then stood again and continued. The elves followed, curiosity growing. Minutes later, the forest path narrowed. The humans slowed, looking around. From the shadows ahead, figures emerged, 3 bandits. Their skin was grayish, their tusks small but sharp, half orcs. Each carried a curved blade. "Well, look at this," one bandit sneered. "A lost little human, all alone." The second bandit stepped closer. "What's in the bag, soldier?" The human said nothing. His eyes moved from one enemy to the next. The leader of the bandits laughed. "Drop the bag and maybe we will let you live." The soldier's lips twitched, not in fear, but in something like amusement. He let the sack drop to the ground. His hand moved to his sword hilt. "Come and take it," he said, his voice low. The bandits rushed forward. The elves expected the fight to be short. The human was tired, wounded, and outnumbered. But what happened next made even the elven leader blink. The soldier moved like a man with nothing left to lose. His blade flashed in the moonlight, cutting through the air with brutal precision. One bandit fell instantly, clutching his chest. Another cried out as the human slammed his shoulder into him, knocking him into the mud. The last bandit's courage broke. He stumbled backward, then turned and ran into the trees. Silence returned, broken only by the soldier's heavy breathing. The elves stayed hidden, stunned. The soldier bent down, lifted the sack again, and began walking. His steps were slower now, his head bowed, but he did not stop. The youngest elf whispered, "He should be dead already. What kind of man keeps going like this?" The leader's voice was low and thoughtful, not a fragile one. The mist thickened, again curling between the trees. The soldier disappeared into it, leaving the elves behind. But their eyes followed him. In their minds, something was not right. Humans were supposed to break, and yet, this one had not yet. The elves moved through the forest like shadows, their steps soundless on the damp earth. The human soldier was still ahead of them, his figure swaying slightly with each step. The black sack he carried seemed heavier than before, but he never let it touch the ground for more than a moment. Why are we still following him? The youngest elf whispered. The leader's eyes narrowed. Because there is something strange about him. Our queen will want to know. Another elf spoke quietly. He is just stubborn. All humans are stubborn when they are desperate. No, the leader said. This one is different. The human reached a clearing where the moonlight poured like silver across the ground. He stopped, scanning the trees. His hand rested on the hilt of his sword, and for a brief moment, his gaze turned to the exact spot where the elves were hidden. He knows. The youngest elf breathed. The soldier didn't call out or attack. Instead, he dropped to one knee, opening the sack just enough for the elves to see. Inside lay the pale face of another human soldier, his eyes closed, skin cold. The sight made the younger elf frown. He is carrying the dead? The leader's jaw tightened. Not just carrying, protecting. The human pulled the sack closed again and stood. Without a word, he moved toward the edge of the clearing, taking the narrow path that led deeper into the forest. The elves followed. Hours passed. The forest grew darker, thicker. Strange animal calls echoed through the trees. The air was heavy with the smell of wet earth and old leaves. Suddenly, the human stopped. His head tilted slightly, listening. From somewhere ahead came the sound of rustling leaves, quick, sharp, deliberate. The leader of the elves motioned for his companions to hide. They melted into the shadows just as 4 figures stepped into view from the opposite side of the path. These were not orcs or bandits. They were elves forest hunters, their bows already drawn. Their faces were painted in green and brown patterns, blending with the trees. One of them spoke in the elf tongue, voice cold. "You do not belong here, human." The soldier didn't flinch. "I am passing through," he said, his voice rough from exhaustion. The hunter stepped closer. "What do you carry? None of your concern." The hunter's eyes narrowed. "Everything in this forest is our concern." The soldier's hand moved slowly to his sword. "I have no wish to fight you, but I will if I must." The hunters glanced at one another. One of them smirked. "You are alone, human. You are tired. You cannot fight us all." The soldier's eyes darkened. "Try me." Before anyone could move, a low growl came from the trees, then another. Yellow eyes appeared. In the darkness, 3, 4, 5 pairs. The hunters froze. "Wolves," one whispered. From the shadows emerged a pack of massive black wolves, their fur bristling, teeth bared. They surrounded the clearing, cutting off all escape. The human's grip on his sword tightened. He stepped slightly in front of the sack, shielding it. The wolves moved in. The hunters raised their bows, but the human struck first. His blade flashed, slashing at the nearest wolf. The creature yelped and backed away, but another leapt at him. The soldier caught it with his shoulder, rolling to the ground, then stabbing. Upward, the hunters fired arrows, killing 2 wolves, but the pack was relentless. One lunged toward the sack, teeth snapping. "No!" the human shouted, swinging his sword in a desperate arc. The wolf fell, but its weight knocked him backward. The Leader of the watching elves tightened his jaw. Something inside him shifted. "Help him," he ordered. The hidden elves leapt from the shadows, joining the fight. Arrows flew, blades struck, and in minutes, the ground was littered with fallen wolves. The surviving wolves melted back into the forest, their eyes fading into the dark. Breathing hard, the human pushed himself to his feet. His eyes scanned the elves who had revealed themselves. "You were following me," he said flatly. The leader did not deny it. "Yes, and now we have saved you." The soldier's gaze moved to the sack. He bent down, checking it carefully. Satisfied that it was unharmed, he looked back at the elves. "I didn't ask for your help." "No," the leader said quietly. "But you needed it." The soldier's mouth tightened, but he said nothing. Instead, he lifted the sack onto his shoulder and began walking again. The youngest elf called out, "Why do you carry the dead like this?" The human stopped. For a long moment, he didn't answer. Then he said, "Because he was my brother, and I will not leave him behind." He walked on, disappearing into the mist once more. The elves stood in silence, watching him go. The youngest elf spoke softly, almost to himself. "Fragile. They said humans were fragile." The leader's eyes were fixed on the soldier's fading figure. "Maybe we were wrong." The forest thinned as the night went on. The human soldier walked with steady but heavy steps, the black sack still over his shoulder. His breath was rough, but his eyes stayed forward, always forward. The elves followed at a distance, their footsteps silent. The youngest kept glancing at the sack. "He has carried it for so long," he whispered. "Why not leave it and move faster?" The leader answered without looking back. "Because to him, the sack is more important than his own life." The soldier came to a stretch of rocky ground. Jagged stones jutted from the earth, and a narrow trail wound upward toward a ridge. The path was steep, and the wind was stronger here. Carrying the smell of rain dot, he began to climb. Halfway up, his foot slipped on loose gravel. He dropped to one knee but caught himself before falling. He never let go of the sack. The youngest elf shook his head in disbelief. "This is madness. He will break himself before reaching anywhere safe." The leader's eyes narrowed. "Or he will prove something none of us expect." By the time the soldier reached the ridge, the sky had turned darker, heavy clouds rolling in. Lightning flashed in the distance, followed by a low rumble of thunder. He stopped, looking down the other side. The slope fell sharply into a valley shrouded in mist. Somewhere far below, a faint light flickered, maybe a campfire. The soldier began his descent. The rocks here were slippery with moss, and the air smelled of wet stone. Halfway down, he froze. The elves saw why. From the fog ahead came the sound of something moving slow, dragging steps. The shape that emerged was taller than a man, its body thin but twisted, its arms too long, ending in black claws. Its eyes glowed faintly green in the dark. The youngest elf whispered in fear, "A ghoul." The leader's hand went to his bow. "Stay hidden," he ordered. The ghoul tilted its head at the human, lips curling back to reveal rows of jagged teeth. Soldier set the sack down carefully behind him. His sword came free with a soft hiss of metal. The ghoul hissed and lunged forward. The human met it halfway, his blade striking across its shoulder. The creature screamed, swinging its claws. The soldier blocked with his arm guard, but the force knocked him back a step. Another flash of lightning lit the ridge, showing a second shape crawling up from the mist. Another ghoul. The youngest elf shifted uneasily. "Two of them. He will not survive." But the leader's eyes stayed fixed. "Watch." The soldier didn't retreat. Instead, he shifted his stance, forcing the first ghoul between himself and the second. Each time the second creature tried to get close, the first blocked its path. The human's sword struck again and again, slow but deliberate, every move protecting the sack behind him. The first ghoul fell with a final cry, green light fading from its eyes. The second rushed in, but the soldier met it with a sudden burst of speed, driving his blade through its chest. For a moment, there was only silence. The soldier's shoulders rose and fell with each heavy breath. Slowly, he bent and lifted the sack again. The youngest elf whispered, "Why does he fight so hard for someone who is already gone?" The leader's voice was quiet. "Because to him, that person is not just gone. He carries more than a body. He carries his promise." The soldier continued down into the valley. Rain began to fall, first as a mist, then as steady drops. The wind picked up, howling through the trees. By the time he reached the valley floor, the light they had seen earlier was gone. The campfire, if it had been one, was cold. The soldier set the sack down, kneeling beside it. For the first time, his shoulders slumped and his head bowed. From their hiding place, the elves saw him pull something from his pocket, a small carved wooden figure. He set it gently on the sack and spoke in a low voice, too soft for them to hear. Then he stood again. The youngest elf frowned. Where is he going now? The leader's eyes followed him as he turned toward the deeper forest. Wherever his duty takes him. Suddenly, a noise rose from the trees around them, whistles, shouts, the sound of many feet moving fast. Out of the shadows emerged a group of armored men-humans. They wore the same crest on their chests as the soldier, but their faces were grim. The one in front called out, "Soldier! You were ordered to fall back to the fort. Why are you here?" The lone soldier's jaw tightened. "I had something to finish first." The officer's eyes went to the sack. His face softened slightly. "That was your brother, wasn't it?" "Yes." The soldier said simply, "You carried him all this way?" "I said I would bring him home," the soldier replied. "So I did." The officer said nothing for a moment, then stepped forward and took the sack from him. "Rest, you've done enough." The soldier looked toward the ridge where the elves were hidden. His eyes lingered there, almost as if he knew exactly where they were. Then he turned and followed his comrades into the rain. The youngest elf spoke. Softly, "Do you think he saw us?" The leader's voice was thoughtful. "Yes, and he let us see him because he wanted us to understand." "Understand what?" "That humans may be weak in body, but strong in ways we never thought to measure." The rain had not stopped since the soldier left with his comrades. It drummed against the leaves and ran down the elves' cloaks, soaking them to the bone. The leader of the elves stood in silence, his sharp eyes fixed on the empty path where the soldier had disappeared. "We should return to the city," one of his companions said quietly. "Our queen will not want us wandering in human lands for long." The youngest elf hesitated. "I think we should follow him." The others turned to stare at him. "Follow him? Why?" One asked. "Because something is coming," the youngest said. "I can feel it, and if he survives, we will know how." The leader finally spoke. "You're right." He adjusted the strap of his bow. "We will follow him, but from a distance. If there is danger, we will see it before it reaches him." The human group had moved fast despite the rain. By the time the elves caught up, they found signs of their passage boot prints pressed deep into the mud, broken branches where someone had stumbled. They followed for an hour before the forest began to change. The trees here were twisted, their roots rising like claws from the ground. A thin mist clung to the earth, and the air was colder. "This place is wrong," one elf murmured. "Dangerous." Another agreed. The leader raised his hand for silence. Voices drifted through the fog. They moved closer, crouching behind a fallen tree. Ahead, the soldiers' group had stopped. The officer was speaking to him in low tones. "This route is risky," the officer said, "but it will save us 2 days. We have to move quickly before the enemy closes in." The soldier nodded. "Then we keep going." The youngest elf frowned. "Enemy? What enemy?" Before anyone could answer, a sound cut through the mist, a deep, guttural growl. It came from all around them. The soldiers' group formed a circle, weapons raised. The officer barked an order, shields up. From the shadows came shapes, dozens of them. Not wolves, not ghouls. These were larger, heavier, their bodies armored in bone-like plates. Their eyes glowed red in the darkness. The youngest elf whispered, "Bone beasts." His voice shook. "They hunt in packs." The leader's face hardened. "If they are here, then the humans will not survive alone." The first beast charged. A human soldier met it with his shield, but the impact threw him to the ground. Another beast leapt at the circle, claws raking against steel. The elves moved without waiting for an order. Arrows flew, striking the beasts in the gaps between their bone plates. The creatures roared and turned toward the new threat, the human soldier, the one they had followed all this time, saw the elves emerge from the fog. For a moment, his eyes widened. Then he gave a short nod, as if accepting their presence without question. "Hold the line." The officer shouted. The battle turned chaotic. One beast slammed into the leader of the elves, knocking him back. The youngest elf leapt to his side, stabbing at the creature's exposed throat. Another beast lunged for the human soldier. He rolled aside, slicing its leg and forcing it to stumble. But before he could finish it, a second beast came from behind. Claws raised. An arrow flew past his ear, burying itself in the beast's neck. It fell with a heavy crash. The soldier turned to see the youngest elf lower his bow. "Keep your back." "Safe," the elf called. The soldier grinned faintly. "You too." The fight lasted minutes, but felt like hours. The last beast fell with a final roar, and silence settled over the misty clearing. Bodies, both human and beast, lay in the mud. The smell of blood was heavy in the air. The officer looked at the elves. "We didn't ask for your help, but you saved us." The leader of the elves replied, "You wouldn't have survived without it." The soldier stood nearby, cleaning his sword. His eyes met the leader's. "You've been following me." "Yes," the leader said plainly. "We wanted to understand you." The soldier sheathed his blade. "And do you?" The leader was quiet for a long moment. "Not yet. But I understand you are not as fragile as we thought." The soldier's lips curved into a small, tired smile. "Then you're learning." The officer interrupted. "We can't stay here. More of those things will come when they smell the blood." The group began to move again, this time with the elves walking beside the humans. Hours later, they reached a wide river. The current was strong, the water dark. A narrow, rotting bridge stretched across it. "We have to cross," the officer said. The youngest elf hesitated. "That bridge won't hold all of us." Before anyone could argue, a loud crack split the air. The bridge sagged in the middle. One wrong step and it would fall into the raging water. The officer cursed under his breath. "We'll have to go one at a time." The human soldier went first, his steps slow but steady. Halfway across, the wood groaned under his weight. From the far bank came another sound, the sharp snap of branches. Figures stepped from the shadows. Armored men, their faces hidden by dark helmets. "Enemy soldiers," the officer shouted. "Move!" "They found us!" Arrows hissed through the air. The soldier on the bridge broke into a run, reaching the far side as the enemy charged. The battle was fast and brutal. The elves fired from the near bank. The humans fought hand to hand on the far side. The enemy tried to push them into the river, but the soldier fought like a man possessed, his blade cutting down anyone who came near. When the last enemy fell, the rain had slowed and the river ran red in places where bodies had fallen in. The soldier stood at the far bank, breathing hard. His eyes met the leaders across the water. There was no need for words. The elves crossed one by one, and together they moved deeper into the forest, away from the smell of blood and the sound of the river. The youngest elf walked beside the soldier. "Do all humans fight like you?" The soldier shook his head. "No, but they could if they had a reason." The elf frowned. "And your reason?" The soldier's gaze darkened, but his voice stayed calm. "Because I promised." And I don't break promises." The elves said nothing more, but in their minds the image of this man, wounded, tired, yet unbroken, stayed like a mark that would not fade. The forest was quieter now, but it was not the peaceful kind of quiet. It was the kind that made even the wind sound suspicious. The rain had stopped, leaving the air heavy and damp. Every footstep sank slightly into the soft ground. The humans and elves moved together now, but the tension between them was still there, hidden under polite silence. The human soldier walked at the front, the black sack once again over his shoulder. His back was straight despite the long hours of travel, but his face was pale, his eyes shadowed. The youngest elf finally asked what had been building in his mind for hours. "What is in the sack?" The soldier did not look back. "You know. What is in it?" "I know it is a body," the elf replied. "But why carry it so far? Why risk your life again and again for someone who cannot feel it?" The soldier kept walking. His voice was quiet, but it carried through the still air. "Because I swore I would bring him home. Alive or dead, I swore it." The youngest elf frowned. "And if that promise costs your life?" "Then it costs my life," the soldier said simply. The leader of the elves glanced at the boy and shook his head slightly, warning him to leave. "The matter?" But the youngest's eyes stayed on the sack, his mind restless. By afternoon, the group reached a wide clearing. In the center stood an old stone well, its edges covered in moss. The officer called for a short rest. The humans sat down, checking their weapons and drinking water. The elves stayed on the far side, eyes scanning the trees. The youngest elf wandered closer to the well. It was deeper than it looked, and when he peered inside, he thought he saw movement far below. "There's something in here," he whispered. The soldier's head turned sharply. "Stay away from it." The youngest elf looked at him. "Why?" "Because this is cursed ground," the soldier said. "And whatever moves in that well should be left there." The officer confirmed it with a grim nod. "Local villages avoid this place. People who go near it vanish." The elves exchanged uneasy glances. As the group prepared to leave, a low rumble rose from the well. It was not wind. It was something alive. The ground trembled slightly. The leader of the elves drew his bow. "Everyone back!" From the darkness of the well, a long pale arm shot upward, its fingers thin and clawed. Another arm followed. Then a face emerged, gaunt, hollow-eyed, with a mouth far too wide. The thing pulled itself out, its body impossibly thin but stretching to unnatural height. Its voice was like 100 whispers at once. "You carry something I need." Its eyes fixed on the soldier and the sack. The soldier stepped forward, placing himself between the creature and his comrades. "You're not getting it." The thing tilted its head, and the air around it seemed to grow colder. "The one you carry owes me his life and his death." The elves shifted uneasily. "What does it mean?" the youngest elf asked. The soldier's jaw tightened. "Before he died, my brother took something from this thing, something that wants back." The leader of the elves said sharply, "Then give it to the creature before it kills us all." "No," the soldier said, "because it's not just an object, it's a map. And in the wrong hands, it could burn both our lands to ash." The creature's smile widened. "You think you can keep it from me?" It moved suddenly, crossing the clearing in a blur. The soldier's sword was in his hand in an instant, steel meeting claw. Sparks flew where they clashed. The officer shouted for the others to fall back, but the elves didn't move. The leader raised his bow, sending an arrow into the creature's side. It shrieked, spinning toward him. The youngest elf darted in, slashing at its leg. The creature stumbled, but its arm lashed out, knocking the boy to the ground. The soldier roared and drove his sword deep into the creature's chest. For a moment, the thing froze. Then it screamed. A sound so sharp it made the air vibrate. It collapsed into black dust that blew away on a wind that came from nowhere. Silence returned, heavy and strange. The youngest elf sat up slowly, clutching his ribs. "It's gone?" "For now," the soldier said. His voice was low, but his hand shook slightly as he picked up the sack. The leader of the elves stepped closer. "You should tell us exactly what you are carrying." The soldier looked him in the eyes. "If I tell you, you may decide you want it for yourself, and then I will have to fight you too." The leader held his gaze for a long moment, then nodded. "Once, then don't tell me. Just make sure it never falls into the wrong hands." The group left the clearing quickly, not looking back at the well. The forest grew darker as evening came, and the shadows seemed to move at the edges of sight. The youngest elf walked beside the soldier again. "One day," he said, "you will have to tell someone what's inside that sack." The soldier didn't answer, but his hand tightened on the rope that bound it shut. Far behind them, in the empty clearing, the moss on the well's stones began to shift. Something deep inside was still moving. The sky darkened as heavy clouds gathered above the forest, blocking out the last light of day. The wind began to howl through the trees, carrying a chill that made even the hardiest of elves pull their cloaks tighter. The human soldier walked ahead, his shoulders tense, the black sack still tightly secured on his back. The elves followed close, their eyes darting nervously around the shadowed woods. "We need to find shelter," the leader said quietly. "This storm will not wait," the officer nodded. "There's an old cabin a few miles east. We can rest there for the night." The youngest elf glanced at the soldier. "Will you rest or keep moving?" The soldier's face was grim. "I can't stop, not yet." The leader stepped forward. "You've carried that burden far enough. We will guard you, but you must rest." Reluctantly, the soldier agreed. They reached the cabin just as the first drops of rain began to fall. The wooden door creaked as it opened, revealing a small, dark interior. Inside, the smell of damp wood and smoke greeted them. The group settled quickly. The soldier lowered the sack to the floor gently, then slumped into a corner, exhaustion. Finally breaking through his resolve, the leader sat nearby, watching him. "Tell us about the promise you made." The soldier's eyes flickered with pain. "My brother. He was more than a comrade. We grew up together, fought side by side. When he died, I swore I'd bring him home." The youngest elf looked at the sack. "You carry him like this because of a promise?" "Yes," the soldier said, "but it's more than that. There's something inside the sack, something that could change everything if it falls into the wrong hands." The officer frowned. What could be so important? Before the soldier could answer, a sudden noise cut through the cabin, a soft scraping sound outside. Everyone froze. "Who's there?" The leader whispered, rising slowly. Outside, the wind howled louder, shaking the cabin walls. The rain hammered against the roof. "Stay inside," the soldier commanded. The scraping continued, growing louder, closer. Suddenly, the door burst open with a crash. A shadowy figure lunged inside. The soldier was on his feet instantly, sword drawn. But the figure was not an enemy. It was a young elf, soaked and trembling. "I was chased," the elf gasped. "Something is following me. It's close." The leader motioned for silence, then spoke calmly. "Tell us what you saw." The elf caught his breath. "Monsters. The same ones we fought before. They are hunting us. They want what you carry." The soldier's face darkened. "Then we must move before they find us." The rain intensified as the group packed quickly. The soldier slung the sack over his back once more. As they stepped outside, the forest was alive with whispers and shifting shadows. The leader turned to the soldier. "This promise you carry, it has put us all in danger." The soldier met his gaze. "And I will protect it, no matter the cost." The wind tore through the trees as they vanished into the stormy night, the weight of the promise heavy on all their hearts. The rain was relentless, washing the forest in cold sheets of water. The human soldier led the group through muddy paths, his breath steady despite the storm. The black sack on his back felt heavier with every step, but he did not slow down. The elves followed silently, their faces tense, knowing something was chasing them. Suddenly, the youngest elf stopped. "Wait," he whispered, pointing ahead. Through the trees, flickering lights appeared, dozens of torches moving fast toward them. The leader drew his bow. "Enemies. They found us." The soldier's grip tightened on his sword. "We must protect the sack at all costs." The group spread out, preparing for battle. The torches grew closer, revealing a large band of dark-clad soldiers. Their faces were hidden beneath helmets, their eyes cold and merciless. "Why do they want the sack?" the youngest elf asked, voice low. The soldier shook his head. "Because inside is a secret that could destroy us all." The band of soldiers charged, shouting battle cries. Arrows flew, swords clashed, and the forest echoed with screams. The soldier fought fiercely, his blade a flash of silver in the storm. The elves covered his back, picking off enemies from the shadows. Amid the chaos, the sack slipped from the soldier's shoulder and tumbled to the ground. A dark figure lunged toward it, but the youngest elf was faster, knocking the attacker away with his dagger. The soldier scrambled to grab the sack, but the dark figure returned, this time wielding a strange glowing weapon. It sliced through the air, aiming for the soldier's throat at the last moment. The leader of the elves stepped in, firing an arrow that struck the attacker's arm. The weapon clattered to the ground. Breathing hard, the soldier grabbed the sack and pulled it close. "We must get to the ancient ruins. Only there can this secret be kept safe." The band of soldiers retreated, melting back into the forest, their howls fading into the night. The group moved quickly, the storm fading into a cold silence. As dawn broke, they reached the ruins' crumbling stone walls covered in moss and vines. Soldier placed the sack on the ground and knelt beside it. "It's time, you know." He opened the sack slowly, revealing a small glowing orb nestled inside. It pulsed with light, casting strange shadows on the stone. "This," the soldier said, "is the heart of the forest. It holds the power to heal or destroy. My brother took it to protect our land, but the enemy wants it for war." The elves stared in awe and fear. The youngest whispered, "So it's not just a body ... it's hope." The soldier nodded. "And if we lose it, everything will fall." The leader stepped forward. "Then we stand together, humans and elves, to protect this world." The soldier smiled faintly. "At last you understand." The rain had stopped. The sun peeked through the clouds, shining on the new alliance forged in the storm. The ancient ruins stood silent beneath a sky heavy with dark clouds. The wind whispered through the broken stones, carrying a sense of doom. The soldier stood in front of the glowing orb, the heart of the forest, his eyes steady but full of worry. The elves gathered close, ready for what was to come. "We cannot stay here," the leader said quietly. "The enemy will return with more power." The soldier nodded. "We must destroy the orb before it falls into their hands. But it is dangerous. The orb's power can tear the world apart if handled wrong." The youngest elf stepped forward. "Then we face the danger together." Suddenly, the ground trembled. From the shadows emerged the dark soldiers, their armor black as night, eyes glowing red with hunger for the orb. "Prepare yourselves," the officer shouted. The battle began with a roar. Arrows flew, swords clashed, and the air filled with the cries of warriors. The soldier moved with fierce determination, protecting the orb with every breath. Amid the chaos, the soldier reached the altar where the orb rested. "Help me," he called to the elves. Together, they lifted the orb high. Its light grew brighter, blinding their enemies. The dark soldiers screamed as the orb's power pushed them back, but the leader warned, The orb's energy is unstable. We must act fast. The soldier took a deep breath and struck the altar with his sword, shattering the stone beneath. The orb cracked, releasing a burst of light that spread through the ruins. The dark soldiers vanished in a scream. Defeated. As the light faded, the soldier turned to the elves. "It is done. The danger is over," the youngest elf smiled. "We fought as one, humans and elves," the leader nodded. "A new beginning." The soldier looked at the empty space where the orb once was. "My promise is kept." The rain began to fall softly, washing away the battle's scars. In the quiet, hope grew.